So the next 3 slides, we are diving into carbohydrates a little further, as I know the words like complex carb and simple carbohydrates get thrown around, and then they bring up the question, well, what's the difference? And where does fiber fit into all of this? So let's break it down. Not all carbs are created equal. Earlier, we talked about the 3 types of carbohydrates, so sugar, starch, and fiber. Complex carbs are going to be under that starch group, and complex carbohydrates are digested more slowly, and they supply a slower release of glucose into the blood. So you're not going to see those, immediate spikes. Some complex carbs are healthier than others, and they include like fruits, starchy vegetables, unrefined whole grains, legumes, and lentils. And so these foods contain many vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that your body needs to function properly. Complex carbs are also known for helping a person feel fuller a little bit longer, and are usually higher in fiber, which support digestive health. So some of these complex carbohydrates would include beans and legumes, so black beans, chickpeas, lentils, kidney beans, all of those would be good options. For fruits, apples, berries, melons, all of those would be also good options. For whole grain products, brown rice, oatmeal, whole wheat bread and pasta. And then for vegetables, just a few examples because there's several, corn and lima beans, peas, and potatoes. Next slide. So simple carbohydrates are foods that digest quickly and send an immediate burst of glucose into the blood. There are 2 types of simple carbohydrates, naturally occurring and added sugar. And usually simple carbohydrates are used to treat hypoglycemic episodes, as they have a greater immediate response on blood glucose. And sometimes it does. Simple carbohydrates sometimes get a bad rap for not providing as many nutritional benefits due to part of it being due to added sugars, and they are usually recommended to be limited in a diabetes meal plan. However, some naturally occurring sugars, in nutritious foods, including like fruit and milk, are simple carbohydrates. So unlike added sugars, naturally occurring sugars also contain vitamins and minerals and fiber that our body needs. Some examples of simple carbohydrates include honey, syrup, white rice, white pasta, regular soda, or sweetened beverages and candy. Next slide. The 3rd type of carbohydrate I wanted to highlight was fiber. Fiber is a complex carbohydrate. It is part of the plant foods that isn't digested in the body. Experts recommend that adults consume 25 to 30 grams of fiber every day, and most of us get about half of that. Fiber helps lower all-cause mortality. It helps make you feel fuller longer, provides fewer calories, lower in added sugar, and helps fight off diseases and decrease risk for obesity, heart disease, diabetes, colon cancer. Plant-based foods such as fruits, vegetables, and whole grain products contain fiber. And so the challenges related to fiber do include an intake goal that is difficult to achieve. The American diet has increased the use of processed foods, as we all know, and have a limited amount of fiber in them. So the other challenge is large amounts of fiber can also cause negative GI effects. So therefore, when increasing fiber, which is recommended in one's day, fiber should be added slowly to avoid bloating or excessive gas. You can go on to the next slide. With a lot of information covered over carbohydrates, how do we go about applying it to a day-to-day choices? So here are some tips to include to help a client or even yourself to work on, including the carbohydrates and making healthy choices when including them. So include a good source of fiber containing food with every meal or snack. So that could be apples, bananas, oats, beans, lima beans, Brussels sprouts. You can add whole grains to your morning meal or any meal really by simply using whole grain bread or whole wheat bread and using it for toast. Hot cereals, old-fashioned or steel-cut oats is recommended. For cold cereals, you're looking for those that list whole wheat whole oats or anything other than like a whole grain, it should be listed first on the nutrition, on the ingredient list, on the nutrition facts label. You can use whole grain breads for lunch or snacks, for sandwiches. Instead of eating so many potatoes, you can try brown rice or other less well-known grains like bulgur or quinoa. You can also switch to whole grain pasta. And sometimes whole grain products can be a little chewy, or if you've heard people say, oh, it's a little bit different, or, texture wise, you can look for those that are made with half whole wheat or brown rice or other whole grain flours. Some of the newer pasta products are made from legumes such as chickpeas, and those are now available as well. It's just finding them. Including beans and legumes are an excellent source of slowly digested carbohydrates, and also can be a good source of lean protein. So substituting meat with those legumes and beans is a great source of fiber as well as protein. And then striving to include a variety of fresh fruits and vegetables in every meal. Next slide. So we will shortly go over protein because it is important, but we won't spend as much time on it. The protein holds a 1/4 of the plate, which would equal about 3 ounces of cooked protein, which is about the size of a deck of cards. Although it is recommended that protein accounts for about 15 to 20% of total calories, protein intake goals should be individualized based on current eating patterns. Some research has found successful management of type 2 diabetes with meal plans including a slightly higher level of protein. And benefits of protein include obviously feeling fuller longer, aiding in wound healing, preventing infections, assisting with fluid balance in the body, and can help build muscle and repair tissue. Next slide. So putting protein into action, include a lean source of protein with each meal. This could include animal protein, seafood, or plant proteins that have become quite popular in the most recent years. I do want to highlight that protein should be a supplement to vegetables, fruits, and whole grains in a meal. It should not be the entire meal, which is very common with a lot of my patients in the past. Protein, they'll just eat the chicken, or they'll just eat the steak, or they'll just eat the bacon. It's just their number one thing, which is great. I'm glad they're thinking about protein, but we also want to include all of those other food groups to get the other nutrients and vitamins that they need as well. Next slide, please. So as we move on to the non-starchy vegetables, this fills up half of the plate. The goal is to have 3 to 5 servings of vegetables per day. 1 serving equals half a cup cooked or 1 cup raw. The reason non-starchy vegetables takes up half the plate is that these foods are lower in carbohydrates. They have fewer calories. They add texture and bulk, and include many vitamins and minerals to help make a person feel fuller without having to overeat on calories. Some tips for incorporating vegetables that are not fresh. So yes, I did say that. You can still use canned vegetables. But if using canned vegetables, it is encouraged to drain the vegetables and rinse with water to decrease how much sodium there is. And if using canned or frozen vegetables, look for ones that say no salt added on the label. And as a general rule, frozen or canned vegetables and sauces are going to be higher both in fat and sodium. Next slide. Here's a list to show how many options patients have when it comes to non-starchy vegetables. There is a plethora of options in different colors, shapes, and taste. But again, this is the category that is the least consumed. So having a list or providing a list to clients to let them choose and let them actually see what is out there is helpful. So a few examples of including vegetables could be as simple as adding chopped onion, peppers, spinach, or zucchini to scrambled eggs in the morning, or adding avocado to toast. So those are some easy tips just to add in at a meal. Next slide, please. Although fats are not on the plate necessarily, I did want to touch on it as it is recommended by the with the diabetes plate method that healthy fats are used for cooking or condiments. Fat is recommended to take up about 20 to 35% of total calories. It is recommended that less than 10% of fat be from saturated fat and to eliminate trans fat. In the chart below, it shows the different types of fat and sources for each one. You have unsaturated fats, which include the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, as well as saturated fats and trans fats. The polyunsaturated fats, this category does include the omega-3s that are not readily available in our standard diet, but you can increase omega-3s by including fish in your diet 2 to 3 times a week. Food sources such as mackerel, red and pink salmon, tuna, canned in water, let's see, rainbow trout, all of those are good sources of omega-3. And those that don't like fish, chia seeds, walnuts, and dried parsley are also can increase omega-3s. Next slide. So putting fat into action, just by replacing red meat with beans, nuts, skinless poultry and fish can help lower the fat in someone's diet or meal plan. You can switch from whole milk to lower fat versions. This also goes for other dairy products. And instead of butter or margarine, use liquid vegetable oils that are rich in unsaturated fats. And then eat 1 or more servings of omega-3 fats every day. And go to the next slide. I did want to highlight hypoglycemia real quick, and if you can go on to the next slide. Let's see. Sorry, I don't. All right, so with hypoglycemia, who's at risk? And so I'm shortly going to go over this slide because there's a lot on here. But there are different aspects that you can think of when looking for someone that might be at risk for hypoglycemia. So looking at clinical and biological risk factors, looking at social and cultural risk factors and other risk factors. Could be age, it could be obviously their income status, food insecurity, if they have other comorbidities like end-stage kidney disease, those can also be risk factors. Go to the next slide, please. And for it says hyper. I apologize for that. It should say hypo. But for hypoglycemia, the rule is still 15 for 15. Consume 15 grams of simple carbohydrates, which we talked about earlier. They are going to affect that blood glucose quickly. So you can use glucose tablets, a gel tube, 4 ounces of juice or regular soda, sugar, honey, or corn syrup, or hard candies, jelly beans, or gumdrops. After 15 minutes, you recheck that blood glucose. If the blood glucose is still low, you repeat the 15 and 15. If once you reach the goal of 70, a snack should be consumed if it will be an hour or more before your next meal. And again, this is just the general rule. If there is someone that is not responding, obviously reach out to emergency services. Next slide, please. So I did want to hit on balancing the diabetes and kidney disease aspect. Diabetes and hypertension are the top 2 causes of kidney failure, and according to the National Kidney Foundation, about 35% of patients who are diabetic also have kidney disease. And I'm sure you've heard it called the renal diet. It's rough because as soon as you get that label, it makes it more confusing and stresses. Most patients get stressed out very easily. The number one barrier when meal planning, when it comes to multiple diagnosis, is what can they eat? And they always ask, what can I eat now? I already eliminated this. I've already limited this. Now what? And then you throw food intolerances or allergies. It just gets really tough to find foods for patients to eat. The chronic kidney disease diet does recommend including eating patterns that are consistent with overall diet quality rather than just limiting nutrients. However, The eating pattern prescribed must be balanced, and it may have to be adjusted to meet individuals' clinical needs. The next couple of slides will give you just a brief overview and provide a resource that was developed to help make creating a patient's plate a little bit easier if they are navigating kidney disease and diabetes. Next slide. When we talk about including considerations for chronic kidney disease when meal planning, we are talking about how to eat in a way of helping protect the kidneys from more damage. So that would include foods that are easy on your kidneys, and it may include limiting other foods or fluids so that those minerals in those foods, like potassium, don't build up to those high levels that can damage the kidneys. So incorporating kidney-friendly foods also helps prevent other issues with high blood pressure, diabetes, and can help prevent kidney disease from getting worse. I've had patients specifically say, what can I eat if I'm diabetic? And now they're telling me to limit potassium, which is what's in most fruits. So it's a great question. And my answer is it's not what they're eating, it's just how much and when they're eating it. These 5 categories right here on this slide are areas that a person with kidney disease may have to learn about and monitor their intake of if needed. As kidney disease progresses, the diet recommendations can change and can be more restrictive. A person with stage 2 kidney disease won't have to be as limiting in some areas than those with stage 3 or 4. So the top 3 boxes, I call them the 3 Ps. Potassium is a mineral found in almost all of our foods that your body does need to make your muscles work. When kidneys are not working well, potassium levels might be too high or too low. And if that is to happen, if it's high or too low, the body can have muscle cramps. It also provides, and it can cause problems with the way that the heart beats and muscle weakness. Phosphorus, this is a big one when it comes to chronic kidney disease. It's a mineral found in almost all foods that works with calcium and vitamin D to help keep your bones healthy. And when kidneys aren't working well, phosphorus can build up and can lead to weak bones, which can lead to bones breaking, which we don't want. There are dietary adjustments that can be made and to replace high phosphorus foods with low phosphorus alternatives. Protein we hit on a little earlier with the plate method. It is historically been recommended to decrease protein intake in individualized chronic kidney disease. However, it has been studied that reducing the amount of dietary protein below the recommended daily allowance is not recommended because it does not alter the glycemic measures, it does not alter cardiovascular risk or the rate of which a person's GFR declines. So focusing on the quality of protein, so that could be plant versus animal, may be beneficial, as some studies have shown that plant proteins may help preserve kidney function. For sodium intake, the general rule is to limit salt intake to less than 2,300 milligrams per day, highlighting salt-free seasonings and herbs to help flavor food. For fluid allowance may be adjusted depending on needs prescribed by a physician to help balance the fluid in the body. Usually healthy kidneys do this for a person, but if they are impaired, medications or fluid allowance will be evaluated. Next slide. Here is a resource from QSource that can help put the diabetes plate method into play for an individual with chronic kidney disease or end-stage renal disease. Individuals limiting phosphorus, potassium intake can adjust the plate method to include fruits and vegetables lower in potassium that are less processed food and reduced amount of dairy and animal products. It can help identify how to fill their plate when choosing foods while showing only foods that are kidney friendly. And the second page on this resource contains the carb serving that equals 15 grams of carbs if a patient is needing that information as well. Next slide, please. I would like to wrap up with addressing some other areas that may be considered missed opportunities in management of diabetes and meal planning. It is obvious that lifestyle and meal planning go hand in hand when it comes to treating diabetes or other comorbidities. Dietary counseling or medical nutrition therapy is covered by most insurances. The internet is great, but can lead individuals down the wrong rabbit hole if they are looking for medical advice. So consulting a registered dietitian will help work with the individual on creating a meal plan that is sustainable, and that can provide the outcomes that the patient desires. Nutrition-based food programs, depending on your state and insurance, some insurances cover medically tailored meals, whether that be frozen or refrigerated. Medically tailored meals can be delivered to an individual's home and have shown in studies that they can decrease hospital readmission rates. Depending on the insurance or service, these meals can be provided post-hospitalization for up to, so many weeks. So this is a great option for those patients that are getting back on their feet or struggling with meal preparation. Specific medically tailored meal services will have or may have diabetes meal options or renal options, which is great. Gym memberships, I just wanted to highlight that some insurances do have a gym membership benefit. I would encourage individuals to look at their plans if that is if that's an option, and how that individual can utilize that opportunity. Obviously, it may not be appropriate for some, but those that are capable may be missing out on that benefit. Cardiac rehab evaluations, depending on diagnosis, this may be an option for some patients. It does require a physician referral. However, it would provide another opportunity for a safe and controlled activity for someone looking to improve their health. And lastly, depression and mental health treatment. This area could have a presentation of its own, as it is important to recognize that a person's mental stability and acceptance of a diagnosis plays a big role in the success of planning and following through with a meal plan. And if you are or know someone who is struggling with depression or accepting a new way of life, please seek help from a counselor, a therapist, or a mental health specialist. Navigating a new diagnosis, such as diabetes or chronic kidney disease, is not easy, and understanding what areas to focus on in a meal plan is hard. It's so hard that individuals have entire careers dedicated to these specific topics and helping people understand how to continue to live a healthy life with these diagnoses. So thank you all for listening to this presentation over meal planning for individuals living with diabetes. I hope that you are able to take something from it, but that wraps up this presentation.